Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted growth strategies. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. In every episode, I bring you inspiring people, stories, ideas, and lessons from around the globe to help you and your business to flourish. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. 100 episodes. Now, here's a really interesting thing. That's a big number. It really is a significant number. I've sat down here in front of this microphone over the last 3 years, and I've put together 100 conversations with the most incredible array of women and a couple of really cool guys from around the world, letting me dig under the hood and find out how did their next chapters start and what motivated them, what inspired them, what helped them get through the challenges that they were experiencing. What was it that they really felt so strongly that they wanted to step into, and how did they do that? I've done that 100 times. And the interesting thing is that even though one of the things that I speak about to my own clients and to you so often is the danger of the comparison trap, I've fallen into it so often myself when I've looked at other podcasts where people seem to somehow get out an episode every single week without fail. Well, I've not managed that because my life has sometimes got in the way, and I've needed to prioritize and decide where is it that I need to focus my attention and my energy. And sometimes, my dear listener, that means I don't get those fortnightly episodes out that I'm committed to. But 100 is still a damn big number. And so I think it's fair that I sit here today reflecting and feeling really proud of that and really appreciating the fact that you are taking the time to listen into these stories. I've often said to myself that my own purpose is to share the stories and facilitate the conversations and provide the guidance and support that inspire next chapters. So if I've done that for you, if we've done that for you in some tiny little way during these 100 episodes, then I want you to celebrate with me, please. And then today we're mixing it up a bit. We decided that as in myself and one of my most gorgeous listeners, decided that it was time to lift the hood a little on me, to actually put me in the interviewee chair instead of the interviewer, and to find out what was it that's happened in my own previous chapters. Now, I'm an open book, really, no pun intended. I have a desire to share what is going on inside of me. What are my insights and perspectives on the world? Because I believe they're going to be helpful for you. So as a result, you've probably heard quite a few of the things that are in this interview. But on the other hand, when someone else asks the questions of you and pulls them out, it does make a big difference in the way that you respond. So the gorgeous Becky Quicke took me through a whole series of questions, and we're talking about what it is that inspires me. What have those own previous chapters been like, and what are the lessons that I've learned along the way? We talked about how to tame the good old popcorn brain, which happens to so many of us women in business. We were looking at the similarities with the different women around the globe that I've interviewed over these last 100 episodes. We discussed legacy metrics instead of vanity metrics. And then we had a little bit of a dive into where I'm going next, where I'm taking the podcast and the business. So I really hope that you do enjoy this expose, so to speak, and I very, very much look forward to sharing more stories with you over the next 100 episodes of the Your Next Chapter podcast.
Hi there. Well, my name is Becky Quicke, and I am sitting over in England in the UK, and I stepped into my next chapter almost a year to the day last year. And I was absolutely thrilled to discover Angela through my own business coach, actually, over in the UK, Wendy Kendall. So she introduced me to Angela and her podcasts. And Angela was in my ear for quite a long time as I was trying to work out my next chapter. And where that was going. So today, the tables have been turned on Angela, And I think we're all going to be really, really excited to hear all about her and her next chapters. So welcome, Angela, to your own podcast.
I love this. Thank you, Becky. And yeah, being on the other side of the microphone is this new experience. But I must thank you. I mean, this whole hitting 100 episodes, it feels like a real milestone. And when we were having that online chat about, and you asked, how are you going to commemorate this? How are you going to do things differently? How are you going to signify this milestone? I was like, not sure. What do you think? And when you suggested that you'd love to hear inside my own head and inside my own chapters, it was like, what a fabulous idea. And then I volunteered you. So thank you for stepping up to the plate and agreeing to do the interviewing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. It's lovely to meet you, to actually meet you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, well, and from my perspective, it's great to meet someone that's actually listening, because you put your podcasts out there into the world, you share your perspectives, you interview all these people, and you know someone's listening because you see the downloads. But to actually, have a conversation with a real live listener, it's exciting for me too. So, yeah, love fest either way.
Brilliant. So, shall I dive into the questions that I have prepared for you?
Let's go for it. Let's have a wholehearted conversation, as I'd call it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I've already mentioned, you have been a real inspiration for me as I stepped into my next chapter. And I know that you inspire many women across the globe. So it'd be really good to hear a little bit about who inspired you to step into your next chapters. And what was it that inspired you?
Well, it's interesting. It's a good question because it has lots of layers to it. And I think this has got a lot to do with the fact that I believe next chapters are evolutions rather than revolutions. Like we change gradually as we move more into becoming ourselves. And so there's been several chapters in my life. But if I think about, the incarnation that I'm in now, the one that feels most aligned with who I am, then I have what you call a way shower. So someone that was showing the way for me, who I've actually had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times. Not that she'd remember, but it's one of my very favorite authors and inspirations, which is Brené Brown. She wrote a book that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. It was her first one that a lot of people have missed. It's called I Thought It Was Just Me, But It Isn't. And so it came before all the famous ones. Yeah, and that's the case of lots of people. But I remember reading this little slim volume. I'm not even sure where I got it from, but I remember so clearly sitting in the seat back at my old home, and I kept having to gasp and put it aside and go, whoa. That is so, yes, that's exactly how I feel. It's like she was inside my head. And it was this real understanding that this journey that so many of us have to make out of what she calls shame and into worthiness that I completely and utterly related to. And it actually started to inform one of my biggest beliefs when it comes to next chapters. And that's the concept that a next chapter is often built on skinned knees. So your worthiness is because of who you are and what you've experienced, not in spite of it. And it really helped me understand that by sharing your story and your insights, and it doesn't have to be a woe is me story, but it can be simply, that you have been there and done that, and you're now sharing the tale. You can actually shorten and sweeten the journey for someone else. So Brené putting that perspective across that what could be a sense of shame to you and some of the things that, you've fallen over and dusted yourself off and got back up again can actually be of your greatest value. So she was certainly an inspiration for me. And then if I move forward to a couple of other examples, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as we go further into the interview, but there was a moment when I was immersed in my marketing agency and it was absolutely devouring me. It was just ripping me apart in terms of the energy and the demands it had upon me. And I didn't think I had a choice to change. And my husband actually, one particular episode, and I'll go more into it later, turned to me one day when I'd said, I don't think I can do this anymore. And he looked at me and simply said, then don't. You've got a choice. And I mean, sometimes you can't see that you've got a choice. Sometimes it's right in front of you, but for some reason you've built these sort of brick walls around yourself that are stopping you from changing. And that was a moment. And then the third one was a lovely friend and colleague, what I call a belief buddy. So someone who really believes in you and what you're here to do in the world. Her name's Brenda, and she's down in Tasmania, that little island off the bottom of Australia.
And she gave me these 4 questions to ponder, which I use with a lot of clients now. They're classic coaching questions, but ones that Brenda pulled out for me just at the right time. And these are worth writing down. So they sound really similar, but they're subtly different, and they allow you to look at a situation from all aspects. So imagine you've got a decision or a problem and you stick it on the coffee table and you can walk all around it. So these questions, I was contemplating, do I stop my agency and move into my next chapter? So the questions were, what will happen if I close my agency? What will happen if I don't close my agency? What won't happen if I close my agency? And what won't happen if I don't close my agency? So it made me look at it, the decision, from all different perspectives. And when I wrote, just journaling on this, when I'd finished writing, it was abundantly clear that the decision was close the door, start your next chapter. There was a lot involved with that, but those inspirational questions, which really allowed me to dig deep and get honest with what was going on, that helped that decision. So that was certainly a source of inspiration. There's so many other things as well, but those are the ones that really stand out for me as it's time to move on. It's time to begin that next phase.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's almost like when you kind of realise that there is another possibility, like you said, that there's a choice. I know, but importantly, I think as well, and this is where I think your podcast comes in. And it's so simple, but it's just so profound that when you hear other people having kind of done that, I mean, I remember listening to the first few podcasts. I mean, I'm going all shivery now. Honestly, I was just like, you're saying about Brené Brown kind of talking to you, all your kind of content, all the thing. I was just like, oh my goodness, yes, that's just so true for me. And it's just kind of, it's almost like that message of that's okay, it's okay to be thinking that and to be feeling that. That's, so it's very, it makes you feel very kind of accepted.
Well, I realised with what you're saying, and it's so good to hear that. I was actually at a conference a couple of years ago over in Canada, and we were working on the concept of what's your mission. And that was sort of like, it had been sitting at the conference, the question that sort of was set as the umbrella over the whole event. And rather than sort of, dig away at it like a dog with a bone, I just let it sit and let it sort of sift, because I knew I was on purpose. But when I was there, it actually dropped. And the mission that I like to articulate these days is my role in life is to share the stories and facilitate the conversations and provide the guidance and support that inspire women to begin their next chapter. And that was it. And I saw that the podcast played that big part because it's about sharing the stories. And when you hear those stories, I know it's a bit of a cliche to know I'm not alone. We know technically that we're not, but until we actually are exposed to those other possibilities and hear, my God, she felt like that. And she started that and she had those challenges, but she gave it a whirl. And hey, that one didn't work, but she didn't fall over. She kept going. Yeah. Hearing that stuff has been really important for me, both in books and on podcasts. And so I was really committed to exactly that, of having other women come onto the show and talk about what was possible for them, as well as some education pieces as well.
Yeah, it's the combo, isn't it, of the kind of the inspiration and then so do this, it's that yin and yang, the kind of like, I'm getting this, feeling inspired and I can do this. It's for me that when those two come together, that's the thing. So could you talk us through your next chapters? And you've already touched on this really, but I guess share with us the wisdom that you've taken from each chapter that's led you into the chapter today, because they do evolve, as you say. So it'd be really interesting to see how it's kind of uncurled for you.
Well, I'll give you the pocket history version. But I guess the main thing first and foremost to recognize is that no time you've ever invested in anything is ever wasted. Ever. I look right back through, when I started working at the ripe old age of 17, and there are things that I have learned the whole way through that have led me to where I am today, that have, enriched my knowledge and my experience today. So there's nothing wasted. That's the first thing to really understand. And you're never starting too late. ever, because there's so much water under the bridge that you can divert and refocus in a new way. So that's probably the first thing to really understand. But mine really began when I had my first child, and going back to corporate world wasn't an option. It just, for many, many reasons, wasn't an option, and I didn't really want to. So I had to look at what my skill set was and decide what to do with it. So, and this is what happens to a lot of women. We look at the skills we had in corporate land and we repurpose them. So I was in marketing and events and sales and sponsorships and all that sort of, in the marketing piece. And so what can I do with that? Well, first and foremost, the first thing I had was a company called Best Wishes. I actually used to get parenting magazines from America. And I read this story about this woman who had started a business providing gift baskets to real estate agents, and she was doing it from home. And obviously with a really small child, and I had 2 stepsons as well. Something that would allow me to work from home was appealing. So I actually put together these gift bags that geographically represented different areas locally, and they had like information from the council and all gifts and vouchers and samples from all local small businesses. Then I went to real estate agents and I had done up the bags in their corporate colours. So if you were Ray White, it was a black bag with yellow ribbon, for example, and did a personalised letter that went in and convinced them that they needed this gift bag to go along with the flowers and the fruit baskets that they sent to clients who bought houses. And they loved the idea, and it was so easy to do. And that was when the real estate market was booming. And so I had about 270 a month were going out at the height. But then, yeah, there was heaps. And I had a lot of the market on the North Shore because it was a unique idea. I mean, this is 20 years ago, okay, a long time ago. But then, to cut a long story short, the bum fell out of the real estate market, and suddenly, the numbers had plummeted. And I realized an important lesson, that to differentiate your streams of income. So to have all of your eggs in the basket, which was very, very industry. Yes, exactly. So I was very reliant on a particular industry, and I didn't have control over the market forces. Was it all dangerous? So I thought, okay, what's next? And what happened there is a couple of the small businesses who were in the bags said, that was a really good idea, and we got new clients. Could you help me with my marketing? And I went, I think I can. And so Ideas into Action, which was the name of my little freelance marketing business, was born with a laptop and a business card and a website, which back then was before WordPress, so long story there, but had a website, and off I went. Now that business grew, and I started from the dining room table, but it grew, and I got my first casual staff member, and it grew, and I ended up with 3 casual staff working from home at my house. We'd push aside the Barbies and the Bakugan and all work from the spare room. And then it grew, so I took us off to serviced offices. And then it grew, so actually my husband and I bought an office in Chatswood on Sydney's North Shore, and I found myself with this marketing agency with 4 full-time staff and clients in 3 states, and it was all happening. Okay, which all sounds great, sounds really good. And on the outside it looked really good, but there's a but. Okay, there's a concept that I've learned from this, that bigger is not necessarily better, and you need to pause and check that what you're building is in alignment with what you want and who you are, and is it going to be sustainable? Because what had happened is I went up the food chain, so to speak. I had a mortgage now and full-time staff and insurances and all sorts of things. Naturally, the turnover that I needed to produce with my team was a lot higher because of those responsibilities, and that was really stressy. And it also meant that the clients that we were now working with, I'd started with little small businesses, and I was directly working with the business owner. But as we went up that food chain, that changed. And we were dealing with a different type of client to be able to bring in the revenues that we needed. And they weren't necessarily as wholehearted as my approach to the world was. I was getting really burnt out. My kids were in before and after school care. I was smoking like a chimney, blood pressure through the roof. And that's when I had that moment I mentioned with my husband. I'd actually was picking him up. He'd had his own next chapter. He'd moved out of management consultancy and into sailing. And he'd just done an ocean race from Sydney to Lord Howe. And I went and picked him up from the airport. And I remember seeing him walk towards the car, bouncing along, just with a grin from ear to ear, looking so happy. And I said, how was he? He went, oh my God, it was incredible, and recounted this beautiful tale of sailing. And then he turned to me and said, how was your week? And I just burst into tears. And that's when I said, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And that's when he said, then don't. So I went through that process that I mentioned before. I recognized that bigger is not necessarily better. Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And you need to align yourself not just with your skills, but also with your values. And that's when I made the decision to let the business go, which was tricky because I had that, the Helga, the inner voice saying, everyone's going to think you've failed, you can't hack it, and all that sort of stuff. But, sometimes deciding to stop something is closure, and it's a good, strong decision. So I actually ricocheted right from strategy, full-on strategy, to life coaching for 12 months because I was just so sick of strategy. I thought I was. And then I realized after about 8 or 9 months of that, when a client said to me, I've been thinking of starting a business, I went, ooh, tell me more. And it became clear to me that I needed to be a mixture. Okay? I could no longer be pure strategy. I needed to also bring in the life piece and very much the confidence and self-belief piece because I knew from my own experience how important that was, and to blend them together, which is what I do now. So it's that mixture of business and life, having people channel their experience through the lens of business so that they can make a difference for others. And it's my happy place. So I had to go to the two extremes to recognize where it was that I sit in the world. And so, lots of lessons, lots and lots of lessons.
Yeah, and there are and things fit at different phases of our lives, don't they? It's kind of, sometimes you kind of come into it and you think, well, I want to go, you sort of listen to people like yourselves, you think, oh, you've got to that point right now, but I'm sure things will change, and you kind of want to get there, but it's almost realizing that things do evolve. And one of your, you have so many fantastic sayings, I love them. We need a book of Angela's, sayings. But you can't move a parked car has just always resonated with me, because some of us, I think, get very stuck in thinking, okay, I want to, if you decide you want this next chapter and what's it going to be, and you kind of want to get it so spot on, and it's just not possible. I've realised over the past year, it's just not possible. You need to just kind of move in the direction that feels right at the time, and things will develop. And you kind of accept that process. But it's hard because we want to get to a destination, but it's not.
It is hard. And because we see so much thrown at us about how quickly it can happen, and about if you just do this and this and this, then voila, all the riches of Rome will fall on your lap type thing. And it's not, it happens occasionally, but they are really outliers, people who have very quick success. And usually if you dig beneath the surface, that overnight success has been, quite a few years in the making. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is to gift yourself with faith and time. And to recognize it takes a while. And I think an important piece that comes in here as well is to decide what role do you want this business to play in your life, because there are different phases. I've still got a daughter at school going into her final year of school. It's a big year here in Australia. So my business will stay as it is, which is a very healthy, enjoyable business, until Charlotte's finished school. And then I'll probably move on and begin another aspect of that chapter. But when you're starting a business, I think it's really important not to put too much pressure on that business. Yeah. So I recommend to a lot of people who are starting to have a side gig, like a job. Don't chuck everything out and wait, because if all of the pressure is put on the back of that fledgling business, you must be fulfilling, you must satisfy me, you must stand out in the market, you must create financial abundance, you must do all of these things for me. That's a lot of pressure to put on the back of a fledgling business, and it can break it. And if we allow ourselves to have other streams of income or realistic expectations, and it gives that little baby business the opportunity to grow without that immense pressure. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my next question is about how I've found that so many working mums, and I definitely include myself in that group, find that we really lose ourselves over the time as we juggle our careers and children and responsibilities and different roles. And I just wonder whether that resonated with you, and whether you would say that you are becoming more yourself in your next chapters, or whether you would say that you've transformed into a different you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I think we're always who we are, but we show different things take priority at different stages of life. Like, I've always been the person that I am in terms of, I've always been a huge learner. I've always sought to inspire others to believe in themselves. That's all. If I look back through life, that's always been there. But that was channeled into my kids more fully for a while when they were small through necessity. But there is a part of me which is an entrepreneur and a teacher at heart. And so even when the kids are really small, I still chose to embark on those sort of activities and projects. And the volume was just turned down a little bit. And then the volume has been turned up again as the responsibilities receded a little. So I believe that I'm becoming more of the person I've always meant to be as more time becomes available to me. I think it's too easy for us to completely immerse ourselves in the lives of our kids. But sometimes we need to. Sometimes we need to. And look, if we've got a supportive partner who believes in what we believe in, and wants to see us succeed, it makes it a lot easier. But I think, I'm part of a generation where the women still did more of the child rearing and all that sort of stuff, and so I had to balance stuff. But I think essentially I am still that person. There's another part, though, Becky, to my story as well, which I've shared briefly before, and it's worth bringing up now, because I got taken sideways for a number of years in addiction. And I battled with addiction for several years, and that was very much tied to these feelings of unworthiness, which is why Brené Brown resonates so strongly with me. And that was tied back to, childhood and teenage things, and where I didn't think I measured up. And so my numbing agent of choice was alcohol. With some people it's shopping, with some people it's workaholism, with some people it's exercise. Wish I'd got that one, but I didn't get that one. And with some people, it's drugs, alcohol, television, whatever. And for a long time I wasn't living up to my full potential because I was hiding, because I was scared. And it wasn't until my late 30s when I actually went, you know what, this is not working for me. I need help. And I reached out and I got the help that I needed, and I managed to, with that assistance, let go of the crutch of the numbing. Because as Brené Brown says, when you choose to numb yourself, you don't get to choose what feelings you numb. You numb the good as well as the bad. So I was really quite bleak there for a while. But 37, got sober, life started changing, and that really allowed me to become so much more the person I'm here to be. When I took away, that anesthetic, and I really felt my emotions and really reconnected to the things that were most important to me instead of being scared and feeling like I wasn't enough. That's when everything changed for me. So I think as a mother, yes, I lost myself a little for a while, but that piece was more important to me, refinding myself, and anchoring myself into who I am. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that, in my own work, I kind of really help women to, like you say, feel all of those emotions because they're just all so useful. And I think that what's really lovely about, because I've in the past year experienced being part of a mastermind, which I know you do, and you do need that support to be able to feel all the feelings, positive and negative. So reminder to celebrate and enjoy. I remember my coach saying, "So how are you going to celebrate that?" I was like, "Good question." But also, oh my goodness, this is really scaring me. I'm feeling really worried about this, or what have you. The whole thing. All parts are welcome, all feelings are welcome and necessary, aren't they, in our next chapter?
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you've got to make friends with all that. You've got to make space and friends with all of those feelings, because there's not a person alive who doesn't start a venture without fear attached to it, without concern. That's totally normal. But if we try and push it down and push it aside, then we can't grow. Your growth gets stunted. So feel the feelings. Feel, absolutely. Deal, heal is the expression in the recovery movement.
Nice.
And I think it's really true. Or feel, heal, and grow, I guess, is another one.
Yeah, lovely. So I recently heard a wonderful woman, I've just recently discovered her, called Kelly Diels over in the USA, and she encourages female entrepreneurs to step away from the audience numbers and followers that we can kind of get so hooked into as a metric of success, and focus on like a metric of our legacy. And I really love thinking about legacy personally. So what will the next generation gain from our work in the world? So how would you describe the legacy that you hope to leave in the world and the next generation?
Oh my goodness. Well, it definitely revolves around that concept of self-belief, because whether you think you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. And I believe there's probably three bits here. I see the world as a continuum rather than a hierarchy. Okay, so I don't believe in the pyramids. I can see that women, imagine all the women stretched out in a long line, the ones that started before you and the ones that are coming after you, not above you or below you. We're in a continuum. And so the women who have already begun, it's their job to turn around and to help those that are behind them, not below them, but behind them. And then it's our job to do the same for the people that are coming behind us. So my contribution is to keep that continuum moving. And the idea is that everything that I do will have both invisible impact and contribute to the ripple effect. So there are people that listen to this podcast that I will never, ever meet. I'll never work with them. They'll never be in a mastermind or on a retreat or doing mentoring with me, but I know that I've helped them in some way, and I absolutely need to trust in that. So that invisible impact is definitely a part of my legacy. And then the concept of the ripple, because if I've impacted someone in some positive way, the way that they will then interact with another person or a client or someone that's providing them with a service will be slightly changed as well. So that's the ripple effect. So although I might not put my hand on my heart and say, it's my job to eradicate, self-doubt from the planet or anything like that, I am confident and feel very comfortable and happy about the idea that the invisible impact and the ripple effect are impacting that continuum of women, and that's my legacy. That's the way that I look at it.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of it going on, because over here in the UK, we're talking about fabulous files, and we're talking about lots of your concepts. So yeah, well, it's definitely working over here. What I wanted to move on to is another of your sayings that you talk about having a popcorn brain, and I absolutely do. I mean, we're all different, but ever since stepping into my next chapter, I didn't have a popcorn brain before. I think I had a bit of a kind of clouded brain in the middle of having my young children. But yeah, lots of ideas come into my head all the time. So how do you respond to sort of new inspiration, new ideas, exciting business plans with maintaining that stability and focus that kind of keeps us going and sustains us? How do you do it?
That's a really big question, because there's so many parts to it. So I'm going to give some specific tips, but I just want to put it in context, because you need a vision. And you need like an overall, strategic plan as to where it is that you're going. What chapter of life in your business are you in, and what's that want to look like? So thinking, 3 years ahead as to what it might look like and be working towards that. And then I use cascade plans with my clients and myself. So it's quarterly planning that aligns with that bigger vision and mission. So, and that works, on a quarterly basis, but how do you do it on a weekly and a daily basis, and deal with all the ideas that come popping in? Well, I've always found that using a weekly planner is the most productive thing that I can do. So I spend time on a Sunday night actually working out what I'm going to do that week. And it always aligns with my bigger goals for that quarter. Okay. But that still doesn't alleviate my brain popping all over the place. So there's still other things that I do. So number one is I have an ideas box, literally a physical box, which is sitting up there just out of reach. It's pink. And when an idea comes popping into my head that's like tantalizing me, I grab it, I write it down, and I stick it in the ideas box. Okay, so because every week I will give myself a little bit of time to have a look at those ideas and evaluate them. And I'll explain the evaluation process, which is really clever and easy, just in a moment. But the other one is that I have what I call the net. And the net, I got it here, is, no, it's upstairs at the moment. The net is literally just, I bind these. They're just graph paper, or paper that has all lines across it. And when something just hits me that I've got to remember to do, I catch it and chuck it on the net. So it might be, order the new school shoes, nothing to do with business, but it's there. I've got to catch it. And if I take myself out of what I'm doing and actually order them now, then I will lose the traction and the depth of what I'm working on. So little things that pop in, they're not new ideas, they're actions, things that I've got to put into action. And I whack them down on the net. And at least once, sometimes twice a day, I give myself like a 10-minute period where I'll go through the net. If there's some stuff that I can action within that time and just get it done, I get a great deal of satisfaction ticking things off the net. In fact, I've been known to put something on the net that I've done that wasn't on the net and then tick it, because it just feels good. But then the ideas box, and this is where the evaluation comes in, because ideas or opportunities can come from all over the place. So then I use 4 criteria for evaluating, is this a good thing to do? Okay, so I have a piece of paper and it's got ticks, hearts, little railway tracks, and dollar signs. I'll explain. So a tick
I'm writing this down. This is fantastic.
So a tick is, how accessible is the market for this idea? How easily could I actually get to decision makers who may impact that idea? So I won't give you a specific example. I just want to give you the tools to use, because it'll be different for everyone. So how accessible is it? The second one, the hearts. How much do I love this? I mean, is this getting me excited? Because excitement and enthusiasm is currency. And if there's something that really lights me up, then there's a great deal better chance that I will actually action it. So that's the hearts. And you're measuring each of these on 1 to 5. Okay, so the next one, the dollar sign. What opportunity is there for revenue for this particular idea or opportunity to actually bring revenue either now or in the future? Little tiny bit or a lot? And that's going to depend, what's important to you as to how important that is. Then the little railway tracks, is this taking me towards where I want to go? Nice. Or is it actually a detour? Okay. So if you use those 4 criteria and rank them 1 to 5, it becomes really obvious with the different ideas which are the ones that align more and deserve more attention. And then I always believe in leaving some space within your normal calendar or diary where you have got the opportunity to bring a new idea in if it aligns with where you're going. So that's the way I handle them. I use the net and I use the ideas box. But sitting above that is the mission, the strategic plan, and the cascade plan and the weekly planner. So there's a lot of stuff there. And believe it or not, I'm a really spontaneous person, but I work well within some sort of a framework. And those are the ones that I've honed over the years that work really well. So, yeah, those are some of the tricks to stop the popcorn brain.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you never stop popcorn brain, because we are creative women, but you can learn to work with it and tame it a little bit so that you actually do the right things for yourself.
Thank you. That's fantastic. So what has your podcasting journey? I mean, I'm not sure exactly when it started, how long have you been podcasting, but what has your podcasting journey taught you? So talking specifically now about your podcasts and this beautiful podcast that you've evolved.
It's the biggest thing it's taught me is how similar we all are. I've talked with women all over the world. And as a result, both of the podcasts and also the work I do as a mentor with women, it actually created the next chapter model of change, which you see on my website, and it came out not very long ago, where you go from discontent to desire to decision to design to deliver. It's got that whole beautiful model, because I recognize everyone goes through the same stages. They're in that deliberation zone where that will I, won't I, shall I, shan't I, until they make the decision, and then it's full speed ahead, going into the design and the deliver stage. But we all get the doubt and the detours and the difficulties, and all of that stuff happens to all of us. So it doesn't matter what the business is that people are creating or recreating, we all have the same concerns and we've all got the same desires. So I see that what it's taught me is that this combination, this having contribution and fulfillment in harmony, that's what we want in our next chapters. That's what every single woman talks about. Now, a lot of women talk about, look, the money's not that important. I would do this even if I wasn't being paid. And that is true. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I've certainly seen that women need to embrace their ability to create revenue, and that's a good thing. Money is a good thing because of the change that allows you to put into the world. So don't shy away. Don't be embarrassed about the fact that you have value and you can create revenue. That's really important. But yeah, the basis is that we all have far more similarities in our business journeys than we do have differences. No matter what the service or the product that we provide or create, we've got really similar approaches to it, and that unites us. And so, connecting with other women is incredibly important when you're on these journeys. Incredibly important. It's fun.
Yeah, fascinating, actually. So how would you like to see things kind of evolve over your next 100 podcasts?
Well, I'm definitely the podcasting journey. This is part of my philosophy when it comes to wholehearted marketing, is that you need to find marketing megaphones and support acts which have they naturally leverage your skills. So I'm a bit of a talker, don't mind talking, as you probably noticed. And I love connecting and chatting with people and delving in and finding the stories and connecting the dots. So it's a natural way of marketing and communication for me. It also, your marketing needs to align with what I call a watering hole. So where is it easy to be accessible to the audience that you want to serve and impact? And podcasting allows that as well. It's a really easy medium to share in and to get other people involved in. Though there's sort of a lot of education. There's a lot of women who still don't listen to podcasts, and that's part of the next chapter of the podcast, is to educate and introduce other women to the medium, both as a listener and as a podcaster, because our opinions deserve to be shared. They will always resonate with someone. So podcasting is definitely a part of my future. But I've got a couple of ideas for it. I'm always continuing to interview people because that mission of sharing the stories and facilitating the conversations. But I'm also going to put more of me into it, as in there's going to be more solo episodes where I actually share philosophies and experiences and beliefs and sorts of things that I think will be helpful. I've hidden behind interviewing because I love it and it's so easy for me, but I'm actually denying my own visibility a bit by putting the spotlight on other people as opposed to sharing the things that I stand for. So I'm going to be a bit brave and come out and start speaking more about perspectives that I want to share. The other piece which I would adore to do, it's on my, I guess you could say, vision board for 2020, is to take the podcast live. I thought about doing that this year, but I need to wait. So whether it's next year or the year after, just depends on what happens with my family. I have a vision. I've always seen it, that I have women coming together for these podcasts where I'm actually interviewing a couple of women on stage, and there are lots of women in the audience, but not sitting in seats, sitting around tables, and I'm prompting them to have specific conversations about stepping into their next chapter and to what actions are they going to take as a result of what they've seen and heard with the women's stories that we share in person on the stage that day. So I see the podcast as having a live element as well, which makes me feel really excited because I love bringing people together. And I think
deeper impact, that feels like a real deepening of the impact, definitely, rather than sort of just listening to it as you're going for a walk or in the car. Actually, more of an involved and deeper impact.
That's exactly what it's about. And it's about having women speak to each other, to share ideas, to share dreams, to share what their vision is, to get feedback, to be buoyed up by the atmosphere in the room, and not to feel, okay, the podcast episode's finished, I'll unplug my earphones and go back out into the world. To actually have that dialogue and to share those thoughts and ideas. And as I was saying before, to recognize, oh my goodness, so you feel like me. You want to make a difference. You want to contribute. You want fulfillment. You want significance. You want to make a difference. So do I. Let's talk about it more. And how can we support each other? So yeah, the deeper impact part is hugely, hugely appealing to me. I mean, I already, as I said, I run retreats and do lots of other work, but this is something that will allow more women to connect and to recognize what is possible and to start to, create more courage for themselves even in that environment, because they'll realize, again, I'm not the only one who wants this and it's absolutely possible. So that's a place where I'd like to.
Because I'm also thinking about, when I've been listening to your podcasts, on my own, and you almost want to turn to someone, go, oh, yeah, does that make sense? Or, you kind of want to share it, or go, yeah, speak back to you, yes, or what have you. So, that sounds really exciting, really exciting.
Mm. Well, it's like I said, it's been sitting there for a while, and I just need to flesh it out more. But by the way, just for yourself and for anyone else who's listening, you can actually do exactly what you just said. You can come into the Next Chapter community, and you can have those conversations. Like, the podcast episodes are always in there. So it's on Facebook. It's the private Facebook group, and you just search in Facebook Your Next Chapter Community, and you'll find us. And you can come in and go, my God, did you hear that? You can absolutely do that. Maybe not, face to face, but there is opportunity for dialogue in there, and there's Zoom calls and lots of things. So yeah, brilliant. You're very welcome to come along and join us.
Well, so it's been a century of podcasts, and there's a certain Ashes contest going on at the moment. I don't know if you're into cricket, but I'm a bit of a cricket-obsessed person, with the England and Australian men's cricket team battling out at the moment, with a few incredible centuries being played. And there's this really lovely tradition in cricket of when someone reaches that century, the batsman or batswoman raises and points their bat towards special people they'd like to acknowledge and share their achievement with. So who would you like to raise your bat towards in sharing your special moment in reaching your century of podcasts?
Oh, my goodness. And yes, we won't talk too much about the Ashes. It's still undecided at this stage. And my husband's the cricket fan, so I'm hearing about it. But that concept of pointing the bat, I can see that really, really clearly. There's one person in particular that stands out immediately. She's been a guest on the show, but she may not remember this. But when I was first beginning to go, you know what, this podcasting caper, this might be for me, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Her name's Rachel Jansen, and she's up on the Sunshine Coast over here in Australia, and she took the time, she had the generosity of spirit to actually get on a call with me and walk me through the whole techie stuff, because she had already started her podcast. And without demystifying the tech, I might not have really dived in and done it. So Rachel, if you're listening, I think you're fabulous. Your interview was awesome, but that demystifying the tech for me, I'm not a technophobe, but there were so many moving parts, and she made that really, really easy. So definite bat point there. The other two are more groups. One would certainly be everyone who has accepted my invitation to be a guest on the show, because without that, there was no show. And the last one is that there has been so many people who have actually applied to be a guest, and I just can't take everybody. It's just not possible. But every one of those women who stepped up for themselves and said, I've got something to say and I want to share it, I absolutely want to point the bat to them, because even if I haven't managed to feature them on the podcast, we have to ask. We have to put ourselves out there. We have to back ourselves and say, I've got something to share. That is the first step into any next chapter. And that's what this personal evolution is all about. It's having the spirit and having the courage and having the self-belief to say, I've got something of value to share, because we absolutely all have, and we don't always own it. So hats off to them as well.
Wonderful. Wow. Well, that's the end of my questions that I had for you today, Angela. It's been so lovely to talk to you. I feel like I've just had this gorgeous conversation with you, and I'm feeling all now. So thank you, and huge congratulations on 100 podcasts. It's an awesome achievement.
Thank you. And as I said at the beginning, thank you for being volunteered, because it's pretty hard to interview yourself. And the thought-provoking questions that you provided today have been awesome. So I've got no doubt that between the two of us, we have managed to create the ripple effect and have some invisible impact going on with people out there, women out there who are listening to our stories. And I reckon we might have to have you as a guest on the podcast pretty soon and dive down into what this last 12 months has been like for you.
Oh, that would be amazing.
She's nodding. For anyone who's not watching, she's nodding. No, that was awesome. I really appreciate your time very much.
No worries.
And to you, my lovely listener, if you have been here since the beginning, if you have been listening to these podcasts the whole way along, well done. You've made it to 100. But if you're new, if this is maybe even the first podcast, we've only managed a few, I do just want to genuinely thank you for your time as well. I know there's so many things that you can invest your energy and your time into, and to spend that here with us and with me on other episodes is genuinely appreciated. I really do hope that I'm having a little bit of invisible impact on you and that you're learning something that helps you to step more fully into your own next chapter. I say go for it, because there's so much excitement and possibility that's waiting for you. So until the next episode, take care. This is Angela Rasper saying, talk soon. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to share it, perhaps leave a review in iTunes, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for your own business breakthrough at the moment, then I've got something special for you. Visit angelaraspers.com/breakthrough guide. That e-guide takes you through the 4 key gaps to close that may be stopping you from reaching the next level in your business. I hope it's extremely helpful, and I look forward to talking with you again on the next episode.